Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sun Up on 7. If you're one of our Sun Up on 7 family, welcome back. And if you're just tuning in for your first show at Sun Up on 7, I'd like to extend a warm welcome and thank you for choosing Sun Up on 7 to start your week and start your day with us. We absolutely value your time and your connection that you're making with us. Let's get started with our first conversation with Minister Henry Charles Usher, the Minister of Public Service, who has been given a new responsibility, the Religious Affairs portfolio, which we're really thankful that he's here with us today because we're going to be getting to know more about what this portfolio means, what's his vision, and how this affects the whole governance of the country. Minister, thank you so much for being here with us.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for the invitation to be on Sun Up. It's good to be here, and certainly good morning to all Belizeans watching on this very chilly Monday morning.
Yes, yes.
We'll be bringing the heat. That's the way how it's going to be working here. We're
Gonna keep it warm.
going to keep it nice and warm,
Yeah.
sizzling and everything.
All right.
But let's get right into it. So you've been given this new, I would just say, I don't want to say whole portfolio, but new responsibility, right? And to think now the importance of it. What do you, I know you said you were mentioning first just to the Prime Minister about wanting to be able to engage the churches and so forth. And then they said, no man, I'll give you a whole new responsibility, religious affairs. What do you think in regards, because that comment could make people think, oh, it wasn't that important, like you needed an entire, responsibility, whole portfolio in this way.
Yeah, I think that it's important to look at what was happening in the past administration. And it was an analysis on the way the past administration was governing the country, meaning that they were very divisive. We found that, even with the church, they were trying to divide the church into different groups and trying to get one to talk against the other and have one be on the Council of Churches and another church not be on the Council of Churches. They were very divisive even with the sugarcane farmers. Have the sugarcane farmers form different associations rather than one association working on their behalf or advocating on their behalf. And really what I found when I was looking at the entire situation was that it was almost like we were all in this big auditorium shouting from different corners, but nobody really talking to each other.
Right.
It was like this group shouting from over here, this group shouting from over here, another one over here, and it was just, there was no real movement forward in terms of dialogue. So in my conversations with the Prime Minister, I said it's important to have a platform, to have I call it a liaison officer, really. Someone to just be dialoguing with the different groups so that we could hear what their views were so that we can go forward. He decided, and of course it's the Prime Minister's decision to make, that he wanted to include the religious affairs in my portfolio as an added responsibility. And certainly I welcome that opportunity to be that person to almost sit down with the different groups and say, listen, what is it? What is your position that you want to move forward? Because what I think is most important is that we have in Belize a set of values that will govern the laws that we make. And I think that is critical. What makes us Belizean? If I ask you, why are you a Belizean? Or what makes you different as a Belizean as compared to a Guatemalan or a Mexican or an American or Jamaican or whatever? I think that some people will say, well, it's the food. I agree. It might be the music, true. But it all comes out of our value system, what we believe in as Belizeans. And I think those values or those principles should govern the laws that we make. Because we don't want to make laws that are antithesis to what we have as values.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those values that include respect, they include inclusion, unity rather than exclusion. It includes hard work. I believe as Belizeans, we all value hard work. It includes family. As Belizeans, we all and always should promote the family, I believe. It includes service. It includes putting others before self. And of course, these are all anchored by love. And to me, those are the principles, those are the values that we should always be looking at. And we need to form a middle ground, a common ground, in which all of those groups can come together and talk about those values.
But Minister, you referred to them as Christian values. Is that really it? I mean, because we were having a conversation, we were saying, not just Christianity, but many religions, even people that are atheists, they might still have those values as well. So,
and I completely agree with you. I am a Christian. I am a proud Catholic. And I will always be willing to say that. I'm not ashamed of saying that. And so when I said Christian principles, those were the principles that I grew up learning.
Okay.
I went to school at Catholic schools. I learned from different teachers. I learned from different spiritual guides. And these are the principles that I have, and I try to use in the ministry that I have, and I try to use when I work in service of the people. So and I agree with you, other religions, and I have been invited to meet with the Islam religion. I've been invited to meet by different groups, and I am willing to sit down with everyone, to listen to them, and to try to find that common way forward. But you are absolutely right. Different religions, different belief systems, they all have these principles that are the core going forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really important when it comes to governing our laws, because we want to put the values in that we get from our different belief systems, but we don't want to make it seem like it's only one religion that we're looking at. We want to see that, just like you said, the inclusion that comes.
Right.
And I think we also we were speaking with Mr. Roscoe last week about the trauma that some of the churches have caused upon the LGBTQ plus community. And his thing was basically that now being afraid that because of now having an overall responsibility, this religious affairs portfolio, it's going to make whatever they have done, like basically just go up in the air. It's basically just taking several steps back. What are your thoughts or your comments towards something as such?
I think that, I believe that, you know, and I certainly appreciate that his group, Sir Roscoe and his group have faced a number of prejudices over the years. But all I ask them not to do is to prejudice disappointment. I ask them not to be judgmental about disappointment until we've had an opportunity to sit down and talk. As a matter of fact, I met with Mr. Roscoe and his group at the Ministry of Public Service last year, and it was a very cordial conversation. We spoke about a number of issues having to do with the public service, having to do with the laws, having to do with laws that they believe are discriminatory against them. And we looked at a lot of those, and we spoke about how we could improve those laws. Because as part of my portfolio is also constitutional and political reform.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it's important that we have these types of conversations so that we can learn how we need to reform the system, how we need to reform the laws. If a group feels discriminated against, then we need to look at that law and see how we can improve it, because as we said, as you said, it's about inclusion.
Most definitely. I think we're in a much more progressive society where we're not seeing the same family dynamic like before. It's not as they're more single mothers, they're male and male counterparts where they are partners and everything.
Non-traditional.
Yeah, there's non-traditional families. So now when you think about the idea of having children, that kind of now reforms the way you look at when you go to the work. And let me put it in a context for you. So say, for example, we have, maternity leave and we have paternity leave. So when you have your child, the mother comes out for maybe 3 months or so forth, depending on, what is the work ethic or so what they go with. But for fathers, it's normally a day.
It's a day.
A day, right? And so now when you think about two fathers that possibly adopted a child or a baby per se, when you look at that, we have to reform the way how the laws look at when a father is supposed to come out on paternity leave. But now those are conversations that we've never had before. We now have to look at it because of the progression that's happening with society.
I think it's important to let us have those conversations. I certainly can't speak on behalf of any group, and I wouldn't want any group to speak on my behalf. I think it's important that we sit down and have these types of discussions. I see that there are certain private businesses that have paternity leave for fathers that are much longer than what the labor law says. So they have very progressive types of leaves for fathers and so on. So if it works there, then let's look at how we can work in other areas as well.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is let us have the conversation before we start to attack the appointment. And I think that it was unfortunate that the attacks came almost immediately. I didn't even have a chance to sit down with anyone. I was surprised last week when the Prime Minister asked me to take on the portfolio, to take on the responsibility. I had other items scheduled for last week, so I really have not had an opportunity to reflect completely on what it means to have this responsibility, and also to set a schedule of meetings with the different organizations and different groups, and certainly with the different Christian and non-Christian organizations to chart the way forward.
Yeah. Because from what I gathered from the conversation that transpired after that announcement last week was the same thing what Renata mentioned, that there were various human rights organizations that felt that this portfolio, given the discrimination they face as a result of religion, they felt like it would hinder the progress that they're making. And then when you introduced your new responsibility in the press release, like some of the statements were not clear. So obviously, it's really good that you're here with us, so that we're able to clarify those things that were mentioned, because that was really the call out there, to clarify, certain statements that were made so that people can feel, where are we now with this new responsibility created? So I wanna ask in relation to that, because you mentioned that part of your responsibility, or your responsibility, is constitutional reform.
Right.
Where does this now lie with the Equal Opportunities Bill? I mean, that has been on hold for almost a year now, and that really speaks out to addressing different equality for everybody, inclusion for everybody, and it was on hold because of the different religious communities that wanted to go back and restructure, reevaluate this, and see where it fits to everybody. Is there anything as it regards to your religious affairs portfolio?
Let me just do a quick recap. I think it's important that the public knows where we are with the constitutional and political reform part of the ministry. And we are finalizing the establishment of a good governance unit.
Okay.
So that good governance unit will really be the focal point when it comes to reform, when it comes to any issues having to do with what you brought up, with anti-corruption issues, with dealing with UNCAC and so on. So, and this governance unit will also be the secretariat for what we're establishing, and the Prime Minister announced it a couple months ago, the People's Constitutional Commission. Now that commission will be looking at all of our laws. It will be looking at the Constitution, looking at all the current laws, all the proposed laws, to see how it fits in with our value system, what changes we need to make sure that, as you rightly said, we are equal under the law. And this Saturday was George Price Day, January 15th. And in 2014, the People's United Party launched the social justice agenda. And I went back and I recommitted. I met with certain groups in the party, and we recommitted to that social justice agenda. And included in that social justice agenda was the reform of our laws to make sure that equality, to make sure that inclusion, that those are the values that will be governing us going forward.
Okay.
I know you mentioned that, it's just been a week, you just briefly gotten this portfolio. It's just like added on, and with all the back and forth and everything, and going on different shows just to clarify your previous comments and so forth. But what do you think, besides the beliefs, the value system that Christianity brings and the different religions bring, what do you think would be maybe two things you really would want to see this religious affairs portfolio bring to the scene now when it comes to changing the dynamic in how we govern our country?
That's a very important question, and thanks for that, because number one, dialogue. We have to have a forum and engagement, a way of engaging each other. Meaningful engagement. I'm not just talking about, okay, let's have a meeting with this group and then we don't meet again for the entire 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a way of having meaningful engagement, a way of having the different church organizations, Christian and non-Christian, have an opportunity to bring forward their ideas as to how we are governed. Different groups as well. So that is number one, dialogue and meaningful engagement. And number two, as we started off by saying, it's about determining what are the Belizean values that we want to see going forward. And it's interesting that there are certain laws that are passed and you don't realize the impact that those laws might have. When they pass a law, I'll give you one that you might not even think about. When they pass a law, or even, I don't even know if it was a law, it was more a regulation that to open a bank account, you needed a proof of residence. You need a utility bill. Well, there are certain villages that don't have utility bills. So if you are discriminating against that group just by saying that you need a bill.
Yeah.
Right? So you cannot pass a law without taking those types of groups into account. Right? Maybe they're not able to get a bill, so we need to look at another way of proving where they reside. So it's something as simple as that. You might not think about it, but it creates a discriminatory position because you didn't take everybody's viewpoint into account.
Most definitely. I think there's a lot of conversations that need to be had now because things are not the same anymore. And we need to be able to I feel like you're gonna have a lot of headaches a little bit along the way, but good headaches because it comes with the turf. To have all these people in a room and to think about, because they're gonna come with their trauma, they're gonna come with they've been discriminated at, and you're gonna be able to think now, how do we move forward? That's kind of gonna make everybody happy, and you're never gonna make everybody happy too as well. So that's the kind of thing too, to decipher who's gonna win, who's gonna lose along the way.
Yeah, yeah, because how we were 30 years ago, I mean, values still remain, but how you say, it's transforming, the society changes, and the demands change.
Well, you know, I mean, it should be like that. Things shouldn't remain stagnant. And we are in an ever-changing world, so Belize needs to change as well. But we also need to have core values that remain the same. We can't just change values every single day. There must be core values that remain at the heart of how we want to govern this country.
Okay.
And we change other, you know.
Right, so if we can find an example, what would be your definition of family for you?
A family structure? Well, there's a traditional family structure. I come from a traditional family structure. I have a traditional family structure, but there are other family structures in place. So we need to look at those. But what is important is I can't tell you all the family structures because I don't know. But I need to hear from other persons.
That's
and
why
that's
we're
why I'm
opening the
saying
discussion.
open the discussion.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that was highlighted on a press release by the organization Our Circle. That's saying that this Christian values kind of threaten the non-traditional families, which is man of two dads, two moms, you know, single mother.
And I'm glad that Our Circle sent a follow-up press release, you know, in terms of the clarifications that they were requiring. And certainly I'm open to meeting, and I'm open to meet with Ms. DeRisi at any time. And certainly I want to learn as well. This is about me learning as well, because it all feeds into the reform process as well. It all feeds into how we want to go forward, and I think that is important. Change is inevitable, but core values must remain the same, I believe.
Yeah.
I want to touch on one more thing that I know there's a lot of people that I've talked about, is the idea of mandatory things that happen like in the school. For example, let me just, for prayer time or attending church and so forth. In your portfolio, is that something that you're going to be looking at? Because there's a lot of people that say, well, I'm not of this religion, so why do I have to engage in these religious affairs? And I have to go to church, or I have to engage in the prayer, or so forth. What are your thoughts and comments like that?
You know, and we have had an excellent relationship, the church-state partnership, when it comes to school. And it shouldn't be the state's role in telling the church how they are going to promote their spiritual values in the children that go to that school. And I think it's unfair that nobody forces an individual to go to a particular school.
Yeah,
it's not like we have zones and you have to go to a school like in the US and in other countries. You have a choice here in this country where to send your child. If you choose to send your child to a Catholic school, then you should expect that that child will have to go to church, will have to learn or have religion in the class. And I don't think that we should interfere with that. I believe that that is important.
Very true.
There you go. That's true. That's a good point.
We're just putting out quickly Our Circle press release,
Sure.
to just show that they are actually in very much support of you after your previous appearance on Love FM. You were speaking about, advocating for more of equality and inclusion, and so they're looking forward to the idea of being around the table and being able to be heard. Because I think that's really what these organizations want to know, that they're going to be heard.
Meaningful as well. It's not just about paying lip service to having a meeting and taking a picture and all of that. It's about having meaningful engagement, meaningful dialogue, so that we can learn how to move forward.
Exactly. And so it's now to just maneuver through. We have all these different organizations that want to be able to give you their share. All the 2 cents have to make the dollar. And so in that regards, everybody needs to come around, and we need to have meaningful dialogue that's going to be able to have something come from it too as well.
And I like that you're open for dialogue with people. Like you said, it's a learning process for you. It's a new portfolio. I mean, by the sound of it, you have been really engaged with your religious community. So it's now about having that official portfolio, but I like the fact that you're willing to engage with people and learn. So we look forward to what this portfolio is going to bring. I'm sure it's going to bring good stuff, good conversations, meaningful conversations, to have everybody involved. Because I think that's one thing that everybody values, being at the table so everybody's on the same page, and from there we come up with good things that can govern everybody equally. So it's definitely something good that's going to be coming along. So
Well,
Looking
Wish you
forward
all
to
the
it.
best.
There's a lot coming in store, and we'll have you back again probably in the next 3 months or so. Can I give you time to wet your toes properly
All
to
right,
exactly
all
know
right.
what's happening with the religious affairs and
Very
seeing
good.
how we're getting that
Very
ball?
good.
Because I'm sure some meetings are going to be taking place in that time, and we can
Certainly,
have a
certainly.
better.
We want to start that process this week, actually.
That would be
to start to
perfect.
meet different persons different groups have been asking for meetings, and we're trying to get those done this week, along with the other responsibilities, that are there as well. But
Yeah.
certainly, thanks for this opportunity. As I said, I'm always willing to come. I feel important coming after Jules. I know Jules likes to come on Monday morning and set the political agenda, so I had to come in and kind of, shift topic a little bit. But
Yeah.
I think it's important. But I have to counter him on one point, if you guys will allow me, and that's the point about school. I don't think there's any conspiracy to keep kids out of the classroom. I really believe that the Ministry of Education has engaged with the teachers, with the parents, with the schools to open the classrooms and to have face-to-face education as soon as possible. We all know the importance of having children in classroom. We know how they have suffered over the past 2 years. I have children that have not been in school, and they are telling me, listen, Dad, I want to go back to the classroom. It's really difficult with the online learning. So it's not about any conspiracy. Jules was saying there was a conspiracy to keep kids out of the classroom. No, there's no conspiracy.
Okay.
It's important to get kids in the classroom, and I think the Ministry of Education has done an excellent job in making sure that they get there safe, but also that we have education back to where we need it to be.
Minister, just quickly on that same note, what are your thoughts on having, you see how in Free Zone they had the mass testing and so forth. What are your thoughts for having zones for schools to have that kind of testing?
Well, I'm not sure how it would work logistically. I certainly would not want to have my child, my daughter who's in primary school, having to be tested regularly. I believe that with the way this Omicron variant is going, we have to learn to live with it. It's endemic. It's ubiquitous. It'll be with us. We have to find a way to be safe, but also to live with it where we don't have to subject our children to testing over and over again. The Free Zone is different. Those are adults working there. They're freely there. But children to be in school and have to be tested, I have a little concern about that if we have to be subjecting them to testing over and over again. We have to make the schools safe. We have to educate the teachers that if you see a child exhibiting some kind of flu-like symptoms, isolate the child, call the parent, and perhaps that child would need to be tested. But to test perfectly safe, healthy children regularly, I don't know if that is something that we need
and on
to
that
look
note,
at.
I want to add the responsibility that parents have to ensure that they're not exposing their children.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, their children, they're governed by their parents' authority. So the parents that are out there, ensure that you are doing the right thing to not expose your kids and they go to school.
You know, we're learning all kind of new terms,
Yeah.
hybrid learning. You know, that term seems to be with us now, and I'm still not sure what that means, but it's something that we hear all the time. Oh, this school is opening for hybrid learning. Well, learning is learning. We need to learn. The children need to learn, right? So
Whichever way they learn, they need to learn some kind of way.
I mean, all the studies have shown that the best way to learn is in the classroom with their peers, learning from a teacher, and so we need to get back to that.
Yeah.
Most definitely. But again, I want to thank you again, Minister, for taking
Thank you,
time to
thank
be
you.
here on our couch and clarifying some comments and everything with it, but also giving some people a sense of relief and hope to know that, this new portfolio, this new responsibility is going to be nothing short of inclusion and having meaningful conversations to allow for a better reform that's coming in Belize. And I think that's super important, something that we can take with us moving forward. And so with that, we go to our next commercial break. When we're back, we're going to be speaking with Special Envoy Rosanna Briceño about what's happening with the new Pantheon Fantastic for all our artists. This is an especially important conversation for you, so stay tuned for that conversation.